Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. And this morning I'm looking at a most important book. This is a book on professional conduct cases. It's called the Professional Conduct Casebook, now in a second edition by Kenneth Hamer. It's from Oxford University Press and it covers a wide range of professional conduct matters. It's an area that's important because of the regulation within the professions themselves. Now, my wife Elizabeth and I, we've reviewed these books before and they are of good value because the case law itself is of great importance to know where we're going at the moment and the views of those who oversee these cases and the decisions. We looked at the book and we gave the title of our review this title, A Compulsory Casebook for all those affected by professional conduct matters. Now, I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's have a look at the book first. Green cover. It's a heavy book, but it's a paperback. There we go. You can see the front, then the spine, and then the back. There's quite a lot of information on the back there. The book itself runs to actually quite a large number of pages, 800 odd pages, 125, 830 pages. Detailed index at the back. Then after that you've got appendix, directory of regulatory bodies, all the people involved. Then you've got from there a whole range of other important words and phrases right at the back, a bit like a glossary if you like, right at the back, explaining certain types of word or phrase and the case where it was looked at and meaning of it given, if I could put it like that. There's the front of the book. It's a heavy book actually, and then you've got after that the actual main foreword written by Lord Justice Lloyd Jones, who I'll mention in a moment. That's the actual foreword. Then the preface itself, which is always worth reading, some acknowledgements. The preface was written in April this year. I'm actually recording this in the summer. And that lists the table of contents. You can see how it's done. It starts off with absence of practitioner and it's an A to Z running all the way through, right to the end, words and phrases, chapter 71. Then tables of cases, huge number there, which are quite important. Table of professional rules and guidance, because the area is very heavily full of rules and everything you do. List of abbreviations, again lots of abbreviations and more abbreviations there. It's about, and then about the author, explains who Mr. Hamer is, and then after that you then have the structure of the book. It's very like the OUP publications. You've got a short index for each chapter, so you should be able to find things quite easily. Then you've got the legal framework, you've got the paragraph numbering, which is actually on the left-hand side. If you look there, very much part of it. You do have quite a lot of information and some little commentary sometimes with the actual paragraph numbering. You can see that there with the case law itself as well. There's no footnoting, which you'd probably be pleased to hear about. And then these are some of the findings of fact, and then the sanctions and so forth. It's fully updated as at the 1st of March. I'll repeat that again later, I'm sure. But that's the book itself. As I said, it's a heavy book. It's an important book because that's the era we're in for anybody who's actually involved in professional matters, and it covers a wide range of professions. This is a book that you need to know of its existence of in case there are any issues that you might need to be facing in your working life until one retires effectively. Now, as the chairman of the Law Commission has said, that's Lord Justice Lloyd Jones, in his foreword, the title is an invaluable means of keeping on top of the ever-increasing flow of reports of disciplinary cases, because we're looking at disciplinary matters here. It's not a subject people like to talk about. It's a growth industry in many ways, in that there are many more of these hearings than there ever used to be, which is why the casebook is so big. Case studies, of course, remain at the heart of the casebook, which is the only book, as I understand it, to analyse all key professional conduct and competence cases in one single portable volume. And there are over 1,000 reported cases, 250 of them being new to this edition. I can't stress too much how important it is, because obviously when this sort of thing happens, it is in many cases the end of a person's career as such. And so, it is an important factor to be borne in mind as to the outcome of these hearings and what happens to people, especially if they've spent many years actually qualifying, and then at the end of it all actually do something that's leads to them losing their livelihood. So it's an important matter which we have to consider, and an analysis then of the 1,000 cases across what is an extensive range of professions is very well carried out, and it offers incisive summaries of cases, framework and general principles, the legal framework certainly and the legal principles, which will be of use, of course, to anybody who practices in this, what is a difficult area. There are unparalleled breadth of cases with over 70 issue-specific chapters covering everything you need to know, from abusive process to vulnerable witnesses. And as I've indicated, when you run through, it's done on an A to Z basis. It's easy to use, providing quick and logical navigation to the matter at hand, and the cases are helpfully cross-referenced to other relevant chapters, which again I think is quite important, because nothing is too compartmentalised. They're written by an acknowledged expert in the area, Mr. Hamer, with extensive experience of disciplinary proceedings across numerous professions. And one major difficulty for the practitioner is that the number of regulatory and disciplinary cases coming before the courts has increased dramatically in recent years, reflecting the rise in the number of complaints made against professionals of all kinds, with successive governments seeking more transparency in the handling of such complaints. And of course this is a very substantial change, really from the beginning of the 21st century, when frankly the floodgates were opened. There were lots of rules about why we shouldn't, and views about why we shouldn't do it, but it has happened, and when you do that you will get what are called complaints coming forward. And for instance, you can see with the Judicial Conduct Investigation Office that they are the people who oversee the work of the judiciary. It's who guards the guards, in fact, in that sense. You can see that everybody will therefore be subjected to some form of scrutiny. And whether that's right or wrong is not an issue. The fact is it's what we are facing, and therefore we need to have a proper framework and the case law to go with it to find out how we actually deal and dispose of these particular matters. And so the issue of complaints, which I think will probably increase, shows just where we are heading at the moment in the early years of the 21st century. One major difficulty is the matter of the need for transparency, and that's really what the successive governments have been working on. And the work therefore covers a wide range of professions. It includes medicine and healthcare, the law, accountancy, financial services, police, prison service, sport, and the law, of course, in the last field, sport, has become increasingly vital and complex. And of course it involves a lot of money, and that's another thing I think we have to be aware of. So Hamer's Professional Conduct Casebook is a leading authority without any question, and continues to be the only book to provide comprehensive coverage of what is a growing body of case law in the developing area. As I say, there are 71 chapters and a very easy to use A to Z format, which analyses all key conduct and competence cases in just one volume. It distills the general principles from legislative framework and offers lucid and informed summaries for today's busy practitioner. Also, the book contains extensive summaries of decisions reached in each case by the court, and you're probably not going to be able to find most of this information elsewhere. The book covers, without difficulty I hasten to add, the book covers every issue arising in the course of professional conduct, proceedings from absence of the practitioner right through to unrepresented practitioners and witnesses. And Hamer expertly identifies all of the relevant source material that needs to be considered when confronted by a specific issue, and provides clear practical guidance. And I think that's of actually marvellous support to the people, the actual people who are the subject of disciplinary hearings, and the people advising them. Because as I said before, you have to have a sensitive touch with this particular area of activity. You are dealing with a person's livelihood and their whole future, so it's something that has to be looked at. And of course the frivolous complaints have got to be weeded out. Let me conclude by saying practitioners will find that each chapter examines the legal framework of all applicable statutory and non-statutory provisions. It details any relevant guideline remarks which set out general principles, and it summarises all relevant case law, making the casebook an indispensable source of reference for every regulatory and disciplinary lawyer and anyone engaged in the work. And as I say, the law is as stated at the 1st of March 2015. I'm just wondering how long it will be before we get another one, because it's a little bit like an evidence casebook in the sense that as soon as you have done one book with all the cases, you've got a whole range of new cases coming up and new decisions being made. And it is, to put it no more bluntly than this, a growth area. And it will continue to be a growth area because people do make more complaints. They have the ability to do so. But the only word of warning I would have, and this is why the book is, I think, very helpful, is those people who make spurious complaints have to be dealt with as well. And the problem we've got is perhaps the balance sometimes doesn't get quite the way it should do. That's certainly the view of some people, some professionals. I'm not here to make a view of that, but what I am going to say is I think this particular book gives us as rounded a view as we can possibly have. There it is again. You can see a lot of information included on the back, and just opening it right in the middle, human rights. There's a lot about human rights. Whether that will be affected within the course of this Parliament, who's to know, because we don't know at the moment what the current government will do. You've got a very detailed set of cases. It's an invaluable book, and one that I'm sure is a great contribution to this area of practice, and I'd like to thank OUP and Kenneth Hamer very much indeed. And thank you to all the other people concerned in its production. Bye-bye.